Theft surge that began last August. Shoplifters targeting
driveway.
Shouted, give me your keys, you know, kept my hands up.
Then $4,000 from the bank she'd been saving up for a trip back home.
Around 11:30 Thursday night,
most of them are black, young black people.
What is going on with black people? I want to quickly preface this with I am black, not African American. However, I was born in Jamaica but spent most of my life in the United States, and not like Chet Hanks Jamaican,
big up the whole island,
like actually Jamaican. I've seen enough while being here to see that there's a serious problem with the African American community and we're failing to address it. Shoot, there's a lot wrong with the country in general, but I'ma just try and condense this down to my main points for this topic. Deprived of meaningful work, men and women lose their reason for existence. They go stark, raving mad. Fyodor Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky was regarded as one of the most important figures in literature due to his work in modernism, existentialism, psychology, and theology. Dostoevsky understood that honest work gives meaning. Without work, one goes mad. I'm sure you've all heard the saying, an idle mind is the devil's playground. And with that being said, there's not enough black people doing honest work. The low rates of black employment isn't necessarily from a lack of trying. There's been a system set up in this country since its inception against black people, and they've been very slow at fixing that. Black people have the lowest median salary in this country, with black unemployment being damn near double the US average, and black people leading in generations with unemployment. You know how some people be leaving each other houses when they retire? Black people be leaving each other poverty, with poverty rates being second only to Native Americans. I believe there might be a common thread between Native American and black people's misfortune. Now, before y'all grill me in the comment section, I'm not stating these stats as an excuse for some black people's bad behavior, but more so as context for the points I'm about to get into. Like how the lack of good role models lead black people to think that the only way to become successful in America is to become a rapper, an athlete, or a gang member.
First things first, rest in peace, Uncle Phil. For real, you the only father that I ever knew. I get my pregnant, I'ma be a better you.
When J. Cole dropped Forest Hills Drives, that's when he solidified himself as one of the greatest rappers alive. The album went triple platinum not just because the beats were hard and the lyrics were fire, even though they most certainly were. It went triple platinum because a lot of people, especially black youth, resonated with the stories told from a young Jermaine Cole. The tracks that contribute to my argument the most are No Role Models and A Tale of Two Cities. No Role Models, as the name implies, states how a young Jermaine Cole didn't have a father or a father figure at home to look up to. Instead, he found that in his group of friends outside. And The Tale of Two Cities depicts the struggle between trying to do what's right and trying to do what puts food on your plate. And in their case, it was robbing people. There is undoubtedly a lack of good role models in the black community, but not because there's not successful black people. Shit, there's a lot of them. But it's because as soon as black people become successful, they dip.
Got money, white people turn neighbors.
Now, it's a deeper subject to get into why all the nice areas are mostly run by white people and all the predominantly black areas are poor. But I don't want to get into that. I understand why more affluent black people would want to leave the hood and take themselves and their family out of it, but just understand what you're leaving in the hood. I believe black people need to invest more in their communities. And if rich black people don't invest in it and other people come in and gentrify it and it becomes nice, black people complain about it. I understand the obvious problems with gentrification, but why let it come to that? Y'all need to invest in y'all communities yourself. So that's it, black people just need to invest in their communities a little bit more and everything's all great? Wrong. One of the major factors here was redlining. I'm sure you've all heard of this infamous term. Due to this, black communities have been from the beginning in an economic disadvantage. Despite the US government acting out of pocket, black people had still found ways to flourish. With Harlem, New York's Harlem Renaissance, aka the New Negro Movement, and Tulsa, Oklahoma's Black Wall Street. But all good things must come to an end when it comes for black people in America. The Harlem Renaissance ended largely in part due to the Great Depression, World War II, and the Harlem Race Riots. And behind all of those, the major factor was white people. And as for Black Wall Street, it was literally burnt down by white people. Now some of you may be like, think for less. That was so long ago. Black people need to stop complaining and pull themselves up by their bootstraps and get back to work. And I'm like, okay, that makes a little sense. Until you realize redlining is still happening in big 2023.
Historic settlement for several reasons. The U.S. Justice Department forcing Los Angeles-based City National Bank to pay an unprecedented $31 million, accusing the bank of systematically avoiding giving loans to people in predominantly black and Latino LA County neighborhoods between 2017 and at least 2020. The DOJ saying the bank even went as far as discouraging them from getting the loans in the first place, alleging that it was all part of an illegal and racist practice called redlining.
On top of the discriminatory practices of these big banks, some black people who are able to reinvest in their communities still run into continued friction when they attempt to. Lemire Park Village Vendors are a group in LA who host workshops, run activities, and invest in the community. However, in some of their investments, when approaching the owners when it comes to buying businesses or buildings, they'll have the owners not responding to them, or they'll deny their offers for purchase with no apparent probable cause.
These kind of people that vote Democrats in all the time, no matter what, blue no matter who, are just as racist as anybody else. And in the Democrat Party, they want to push the single motherhood.
And of course, parenting, I believe every black person understands the problems that we have in the black community when it comes to parenting, because most of the times it's just one.
Single parent black homes. This is the prevailing notion as to the dysfunction in the black communities. Black households are number one when it comes to single parent led. And one could say with today's current cultural dynamic that it's actually in the woman's best interest to remain single. Women can benefit from the numerous social supports and collecting child support. And just quick disclaimer, I know that white women are actually the number one users of social support, so just trying to get that out there. Now, I'm not saying men are infallible here, because there are guys that impregnate women and dip or are terrible partners, and it's best for both parties if they just separate. But the separation of the black family runs even deeper than that, with like the war on drugs in the 1980s, ripping tens and thousands of young black men from their families and throwing them in prison, with the community suffering from that still to this day. With this already pre-existing notion of fatherless homes in the black community, black men who are now finally trying to come back to the community are faced with the new prevailing social issue of the tearing down of the patriarchy.
That's less true for young men now, because we believe that there's something pernicious about male competence and activity. It's part of it's part of the notion that the best way to characterize Western society is as a tyrannical patriarchy, which is an appalling doctrine as far as I'm concerned.
Like, there's some dudes who just got their freedom. They shouldn't be stepping back. They should be stepping up. The statistics speak to themselves as to the ramifications of single-parent households.
90% of all homeless and runaway children, 63% of teen suicides, 85% of children and teens with behavior disorders come from fatherless homes.
Now, I'm not trying to argue the intricacies of single-parent black households. Each of those situations are case by case. But what I am sharing is the repercussions of having said single-parent black households. Just to share how pervasive this is, my own mother is a single mother. Black people are struggling to generate wealth and build strong communities because not only is the system against us, we're also against ourselves. Just the other day, Queens, New York busted like the biggest gang in the city's history, I believe, and they're all young black people, mostly young black men. Instead of trying to kill each other off of pointless arguments, they could take all that extra damn energy and money, and they have a lot of guns, so I know they have a lot of money because guns ain't cheap. I know. They can invest that into building something worthwhile in the community. But most of them don't know any better because they don't have any good role models, and most of them don't have any good role models because they probably don't have a father, and their father might have run away or they might have been imprisoned and now they're going to prison. And you see where I'm going here? It's an endless cycle.
In New York City alone, okay, blacks are 23%. They make up 75% of the population. 75% of all shootings, 70% of all robberies, and 60% of all violent crimes. All right. The whites only 3%.
With New York being an outlier here because black people in New York are different. According to the FBI's 2019 crime report, because that's the most up-to-date file right now, white people make up nearly 70% of all arrests. I should point out, however, white people are about 60% of the US population, so their percentage of about 70%, 69.4, is close to their US total. However, black and African Americans only make up about 13% of the US population, so their numbers at 26% is more than double their representation there. As for non-fatal violent crimes, black people constitute 33% of those arrests, while white people constitute 46% of those arrests. Again, the numbers are skewed on the black people side. However, the total number still remains the same, that it's more white people who are arrested for these crimes, although the media doesn't make it seem that way. With this being said, I'm not defending anybody here. All of these people need to be locked up and be in prison. So why does it feel like black people are doing all the crimes? Well, it could just be the history of the country that always villainize black people, demonize them, as with the war on drugs. Or how back in the day the Ku Klux Klan said all black men wanted their white women. It's just in the country's history to villainize and demonize black people. But it's most importantly the existing systems placed upon the black community for decades that leads to the current outcomes now. This isn't an excuse for bad behavior, merely my explanation and take on it. But this has to stop. An eye for an eye and the whole world goes blind. You know the sayings, two wrongs don't make a right. Now, how do the black community fix decades and decades of mistreatment? I honestly don't know. However, I believe a good place to start is with fixing the black family. Let's try and fix our homes first before we try and fix the world.
Bow, 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 bow. Him, her, bodies. Nice feeling, tired be a hero, but live long enough to see yourself become a villain.